Hi, this is Stephanie Miller from The Stephanie Miller Show. Please enjoy this exclusive clip from my show on Political Voices Network.
Good morning, Cliff.
Sorry, I couldn't resist, even though you hadn't introduced me yet.
I don't blame you one bit on that one because Ted. Well, it's as I said last week. I need to make sure I find the bleep button on Mama's box over here.
Cliff's on the bleep button.
I don't know where the bleep button is. Look for the one for the most use. Anyways, I'm just gonna go with this.
Me in New York, and
Chris can bleep for me. All right, here we go. As Maya Angelou once said, when someone shows you they're the first time, you believe them.
Yep. Yes. And Ted Cruz has been showing that since he was a teenager. You ever see that old video of him when somebody interviewed him in high school? And really, he looked like the same utter dork that people probably stuffed in lockers at school, except for he was like actually not fat yet. And
yes,
he was thin. He was just the same guy who's like, I'm going to take over the world. And I mean, he was like, he had the grandiose visions of evil back then. And of course, now we know that he was discussing with Maria Bartiromo how to set up a special fake fraud commission to overthrow the election. So he's a traitor, and he's gotten to the point he can never get elected. He can't get elected if everybody actually votes, because he's literally one of the most loathsome, a word I like to use too, oleaginous.
That's a solid, wow,
great word.
That's a lot of syllables.
He's dripping with grease, basically. He's just the scummiest, greasiest, and I don't know how anybody believes. I mean, Trump actually, like when he says stuff, as much as I loathe Trump, you can maybe believe that he means it. Ted Cruz, when he talks, he doesn't sound like he actually even believes himself.
He's a full poser is what he is.
I'm sorry?
He's a full-on poser. He just it's like nothing about him seems real. It was kind of like how he grew. I feel like I went back and looked recently. They showed the clip of him after Trump made fun of Heidi back during the 2016 election. And that was Ted Cruz without the beard at that point. And I feel like he grew the beard in after that, so like maybe we wouldn't recognize him as the same spineless sack of crap.
Maybe he was trying to look a little more alpha. I don't know.
But you know what he looked up looking like? Did you guys watch Cheers back in the day?
Sure.
Yeah.
Remember when they had a beard growing contest and Cliff Clavin couldn't grow it?
Yes.
So he actually went and he got the industrial glue.
Yep.
Because all these patches all over his face.
Yep.
I mean, it's not even a real beard. If Ted Cruz is trying to look more alpha, he should really maybe glue some hair to his face. It's like a patch up here, a patch up here, a little bit down. Like, he looks ridiculous.
He does.
Make him look like the werewolf. That'd be great.
Well, he already looks like a werewolf. A werewolf who's mid-change.
Like mid-transition.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's right. He's transitioning.
Yes.
We should talk about that.
Ted Cruz is transitioning to be a werewolf. Well, while we're talking about Ted, let's keep on going with this. Some more clips from this.
Here we go.
So he was holding his press conference down at the border.
Again.
The reporter asked a legitimate question, and basically Ted Cruz's response was to be a D.
Let me ask you something. Let me ask you something. What rate of illegal immigration do we have in 2020? Do you know anything? I asked you a question. Do you know anything?
How long have you been in office?
I've been in office 11 years now.
And this has been kicked the count during multiple administrations.
Except you don't get to argue with me. You asked your question. You asked your question. You don't get. You want to hold a press conference? You can do it over there.
You have multiple.
You want to hold a press conference? You can do it over there.
Ted seems a little touchy.
Yeah.
Being called out for not doing anything for how many years?
Yeah.
Well, he's been there, sadly. He got elected in 2012, I believe. And the thing is that, again, like so many other issues that plague us these days, this is why, like, when people try to make things, oh, you're being partisan, and it's like, I don't want to be partisan. They make me partisan. Mm-hmm. There was a part of the Republican Party. In fact, I even wrote a book critical of John McCain.
You did.
I think you got back in 2008. God, what I'd give for him now compared to the rest of these.
Yeah.
It's scary, right?
But McCain was one of the few people who stood up, and actually George W. Bush, and supported wholeheartedly immigration reform. And it was an immigration reform bill that could appeal to all sides. It had things about penalties and a period of time over which you would have to pay back taxes and do all of this to become a citizen. And companies would be punished who were hiring people that were undocumented. And some of that money would be used, and they would strengthen the security at the border. It had everything in it. It got 67 Senate votes, including Lindsey Graham, who he didn't even faint on his couch that day. It was a good day for him. And, but the House blocked it, the Republican House. And they've used this as an issue. We could have fixed this. I mean, would it be perfect? No, but their so-called border, which, by the way, the border crossings have gone down. So it's all just fake, like everything else is. They're lying. But any crisis that is going on, if a few people are being held there, in lockup because they're trying to cross the border to get a better life, that's, to me, a crisis of humanity.
Yeah.
And we should be doing something to fix that. And we had that sitting there. But the Republicans, like with abortion, although that backfired on them, like with assault rifles, like with so many other things, would rather have an issue than a solution.
Yeah.
They want these problems, or they've got nothing to run on.
No, we've been saying that all morning, and that's true for the border. That's true for the debt ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they kind of given up on the ACA because they've realized that it's a losing issue for them because people like it.
Right.
But even when the AC was still in play, they would use that to the hilt. But again, there was no solution for it. And that's why John McCain, to his credit, voted against the repeal that they had because they had no replacement for it.
No, they kept saying it's like that question that I guess that was a reporter asked Ted Cruz, like, you've been here 11 years. What have you been doing?
Yeah.
What he's been doing is, of course, demagoguing and lying and getting up and reading Green Eggs and Ham on the floor and getting it wrong.
Right.
And going to Cancun, sneaking off with his little pot belly and his little roly-poly, suitcase of his.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think I need to be quiet.
No. Keep going. I'm just
giving me a
giving. Chris just stole third.
Nice, Chris. When you're running off to Cancun and you're demagoguing and lying about everything, I guess there's not a lot of time to actually engage in policy.
Right.
But they had a policy, and the other senator, by the way, from Texas, who I loathe too, John Cornyn, originally had signed on to that bill. He voted for that bill too, to reform immigration. Like, we had the votes, but the House blocked it because of right-wing nuts in the House. Mm-hmm. And sadly, some of those nuts in the House have made their way up to the Senate and corrupted that institution too. And I mean, all these problems, if we could find 10 reasonable Republicans, could solve tomorrow.
Yeah.
All of them. Guns, abortion rights. I mean, even if they said, we'll only meet you in the middle somewhere, and we're going to, this is not something I'd be for, but I'd take anything around and say, we'll guarantee abortion up to 12 or 15 weeks. Obviously, I would keep fighting after to expand that. But even if they were willing to meet somewhere but they're not. And they're not willing to meet somewhere on guns, and they're liars and they're demagogues.
I feel weird being in a room full of men saying this, but there was one of the female senators, I can't remember which one it was now, Wisconsin, who's the female senator from Tammy Baldwin was on one of the Sunday shows, and they brought up the idea to her, and I think it's something that she's on board with. She said that she would consider a 20-week ban as long as there were rules in there for the health of the mother and the viability of the child, and take all of these safety because basically when you start talking about a 20-week ban, then you're getting more into Roe v. Wade territory, because I don't know if people always think about the fact that Roe v. Wade, they balanced it saying the further along the woman is in the pregnancy, the more the life of the child becomes a factor in that. And that 20-week ban starts to play into that idea, because most women will know by 20 weeks if they want to have an abortion or not. And they'll also know these situations like whether the fetus is developing properly, if there's going to be health issues.
Do you know how many women had late term? I always like to educate folks about this because they lie about it. They grab have late term abortions in this country. It's 0.03%.
Yeah.
Basically, it is if you are in a situation where your health is going to grievously be injured or you're going to die.
Right.
So I'm going to retract something I said earlier, not 12 weeks, that's too soon. But if it was something in the 15 to 20 week range, again, I would fight to get Roe v. Wade back and more.
Yep.
But in the meantime, if they're willing to compromise on something like a 15 to 20 week, range, preferably 20, at least I'm all about public health, saving lives, and then you fight the next day for more. If they're willing to agree on the most basic things that they say, guns don't kill people, people kill people. Well, if that's true, then you'd want to do an effing background check on the person.
You want to make sure people don't have guns.
You want to have a red flag laws to take a gun away from the person.
Right.
So that line only works if you're arguing against an assault rifle ban or something like that. It doesn't work for all the other things that they're against because they're liars.
Right.
And if they want to find compromise ground on a bunch of these things, it's right there. I would still fight for more. I'd fight for Roe. I'd fight for a full assault rifle ban. And all of that. But there's and the immigration one is one I think there was more agreement on than almost any of these other things in this. I mean, the Senate, they got almost 70 votes.
Yeah.
When does it happen?
That doesn't happen anymore on any issue.
Right.
And like on immigration, I just want to wrap up. We've got one last one with Ted Cruz here, because to the point you were talking about, like he's a do-nothing person in Congress. And listen really carefully what he says here at the end of this.
I'm going to answer his question. The talking point of the Democrats, which this media reporter happily parrots, is, gosh, the problem can't be fixed. There's one little problem with that. It is an utter and complete lie. In 2020, the last year of the Trump presidency, we had the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years. You ask, what have I done? I've championed the men and women of Border Patrol. I've championed securing the border. I've championed remain in Mexico.
He's championed.
Yeah.
He championed remaining in Mexico because he wants to be in Cancun all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what? The 2020 line, gee, I can't think. What was going on in 2020?
Yeah,
Why there weren't people crossing the border?
there?
Was it Trump? Or was there an international pandemic that may have slowed down people who were putting themselves in that position? I mean, he's just, every word out of his mouth is a lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just a human. I mean, when that producer who did Last of Us and the nuclear Chernobyl, you know, Craig Mason, who was stuck being his roommate at Princeton, was just like, he's the most evil, awful human being ever. Like, his wife gets insulted, he doesn't defend her. His own daughters refuse to hug him in a picture. Two of his colleagues, I think, endorsed him for the presidency because they found him more loathsome than Donald Trump.
No.
I think that kind of says it all.
Yeah, absolutely no one likes him. And that's why I'm actually really excited about Colin Allred running against him down there in Texas. I mean, as much as I love Beto, it's nice to have somebody new in the mix. And I don't know, I think Colin Allred, a former football player in Texas, he's going to be able to play a game that Ted Cruz can't play. If he wants to play the man-up game, Colin Allred can do that.
He's already doing those ads. I mean, put him up next to Ted Cruz, this muscular, butt-kicking guy that was a tough football player, but also intellectually can run circles around Ted.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I'm very excited about it too, because the map for us, if the bottom falls out for them because they're so horrible, then we could win anywhere, right? Like we've won some crazy seats. But the map for us, the Senate map, looks awful in 2024. And honestly, Texas and Florida may be our two best shots, with Rick Scott having only ever won another one who's loathsome and looks kind of like one of those, I think the guy that Will Smith was fighting against in Men in Black 2, who's sending the little versions of himself after him to attack him. He looks exactly like that guy. In any case, he's an alien. He's never won an election by more than 1.1%.
Yeah.
And in 3 elections, and the other 2 were like 0.03% and like 0.4%. Like, those are 2 seats. I know they're not blue states, and I know Florida has gone more into the reddish direction, and I know Texas is sort of purplish red, but we're going to have to compete in those 2 if we're going to hold on to the Senate, because we've got seats up here in Ohio with Sherrod Brown. You mentioned Tammy Baldwin is up for re-election. I mean, we're going to have some tough seats. Holding on to Tester in Montana, holding on to not really a Democrat and Joe Manchin in West Virginia. Like, we've got some challenges. So.
The fact that Mitch McConnell last week, though, said to CNN that it's all going to come down to candidate quality, and even he's already projecting because he knows that Trump can get in and ruin this for him. Yeah. I don't know if that's a warning shot from Mitch that he's trying to get it out there that we could still screw this up, or if he's just kind of like trying to lower expectations for all of us. But I think it is very, very real that we could. I think
it's both.
Yeah.
He's because look at what happened to them last time.
Yeah.
Because of candidates they chose.
Yep. Nope. Exactly.
Hey all, Glenn Kirschner here. Friends, I hope you'll join me on my audio podcast, Justice Matters. We talk about not only the legal issues of the day, but we also talk about the need to reform ethics in our government. Here's one example, the oath of office. You know the one. I do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Let's add 22 words to that oath. Quote, and I will promptly report any instances of crime and or corruption by government officials and employees of which I become aware. Friends, our democracy is worth fighting for. Join us in this fight, because justice matters. Look for Justice Matters wherever you ordinarily find your podcasts.